plentiful and sumptuous meals when the spirit moves me, but no one who's stuffed to the gills with 5 boxes of cereal will appreciate the gourmet flavors of Eggplant Croquant.
Hello, and welcome to the Goat American Novel. I'm Myra Grass. You may know me from my regular series, This American Goat, where we've recently completed an expose on unsound practices in the raw artisanal cood industry. Shocking. I'm butting in this week for Erin and Ursula, who are attending GoatCastCon 2025. It's being held high on a hill, and the keynote speaker is the lonely goat herd. Allow me, then, to introduce Eggplant Croquant. I can't introduce the food to you, of course, as this is a podcast, not a restaurant. But Eggplant Croquant is the name of this episode, Episode 2, Season 2. I will remind you, as Erin and Ursula so often do, that this is a cereal journey. Some might say a sweet cereal journey. And that you are highly advised to start at the start, or start at the very beginning. That's a very good place to start. This episode falls somewhere to the left of the middle, and if you attempt to start here, you'll find yourself waking up behind the barn, confused and disoriented, unsure of what day it is, who all these characters are, and whether or not Eggplant Croquant is even edible. For you listeners who have been following along, this episode covers events happening at the same time as the dog exorcism in Episode 1. We'll catch up with the goats in the barn and with Layla, Arcturix, Mangoat, and Dandy. And Millicent. And I do have some content warnings. First up, a lot of eggplant is eaten, some of it with ketchup. Secondly, there is one use of the word, I'll spell it, A-S-S-H-A-T. A-S-S hat, all right? Well, Sawyer says it at minute 35, so cover tender ears as needed. Finally, this episode does contain mortal peril. Things get pretty tense up there in the barn. You might need a blanket fort of your own just to feel safe listening to it. We pledge to you that no goats were harmed in the making of this episode. It's all done with lights and camera trickery and fake blood. Well, actually, it's just Hildy bleeding away. We promise you the goats will make it through. Erin and Ursula will be back next time. Without further ado, please enjoy Eggplant Croquant. It just means crispy eggplant.
Silver, Goatina, and Minerva had stood watching at the window a long time, breathless, silent, hackles bristling, watching as their sisters and the little human escaped through the blackberry hedge. After a long time had passed without a chupacabra bursting out of the door below to chase down their sisters, or in fact without it making any noises after the last pained yowls, Silver broke the silence. Mango licked him. I was gonna get it. It must have been her. Well, I guess she hits pretty hard for a runt. Can't have been that bad a monster in the first place. Still, it should have been me to do it.
How are you talking like that? Our sisters barely escaped with their lives,
Goatina bleated, delivering a nasty little blow to Silver's knees. Yeah, and don't worry. I suspect you'll still get your chance with that thing, tough guy, Minerva said. There's no way Mango killed it.
Yeah, it sounded plenty alive, even if Mango did crack him a good one by the sound of it,
Goatina said. I think the little human did somehow, too, Minerva mused. It roared, but then it yowled. In pain, Silver put in. Yeah, and then it sounded like the barn door slammed?
Yeah, and don't forget, the lights flickered for a second there. That was Ruby,
Goatina added. Yeah, then the door slammed, and then more pain. Goats, 2. Chupacabra, 0. I don't even know why we're scared of this thing.
Well, I am scared. It's still roaming around down under us, and we don't know how to get down safe.
Yes, you're right, Silver went on. Mangoat can't possibly have finished it off. Her deed today is but an assist, a footnote in the epic poem that will be written about my life.
What are you talking about? Footnote? Epic poem?
Well, I don't know what those words mean exactly, but I heard Stephanie and Rafaela talk about it, and I'm pretty sure they'll make one about me. Especially after I slay the chupacabra. Silver, focus. I can't! I haven't eaten all day! On cue, Gotina and Minerva's stomachs began growling. A goat has a fast metabolism and needs to eat more or less constantly, especially if it is a growing one, as these three were. Gotina looked reflexively up to Minerva as the senior goat present. Don't look at me, Minerva answered. You're the leader of this expedition, remember? I just followed because somebody had to keep an eye on you two.
Oh, right. I'm the leader,
Gotina nodded. Silver narrowed her eyes at Minerva, who still had yards of black lace draped around her neck and shoulders. So, you can't find us anything to eat, but you've gotten yourself dressed up in some of that weird human stuff. I got tangled, Minerva bleated, and it's not my job to find you food, you great oaf. Minerva shook her head threateningly at Silver, who was only too happy to throw her big head into a fight. Oh, come off it. Gotina, a leader? Yes, Gotina, a leader. She's got more heart in one little hoof than you have in your whole oversized body. She's a weedy, little runt. Sizes and everything, Silver. At least she's not a swollen, headed, selfish, out to lunch. Out to lunch? What does that even mean? I'm not eating lunch. I'm stuck up here with you.
Guys! Hey, guys!
The two bigger goats were not listening for Gotina's voice from down the hall. Where's the lunch, Minerva? I'd love to be out to lunch.
Guys, I found the lunch.
Silver and Minerva immediately dropped their argument to follow Gotina's voice. Where? Silver bleated.
Here, in Ruby's room.
Always in there with those goat-forsaken bones, always on about Ruby this and Ruby that, as if Ruby's so great, Silver grumbled as they ran on to Gotina. So now you're jealous of a 100-year-old dead goat? Minerva answered, who's saved our lives twice now? Gotina's obsessed with Ruby. It's unhealthy. I'll bet you a bushel of apples she's in there gnawing on those bones like a dog. Gotina was not gnawing on the bones. She had stepped delicately over them and was standing up on her hind hooves, her body halfway out the window behind Ruby's skeleton. The aroma of half-chewed willow greeted the two larger goats. Let me at it, Silver bellowed, and she stamped to the window, Minerva at her heels. Gotina's head popped back in, a leafy branch in her mouth.
Hey, watch out for Ruby! Don't step on her bones!
Having eaten 3 branches already, Gotina had the vigor to swipe her horns threateningly at her cousins, directing them around the bones.
There's a real tasty weeping willow tree you can just reach. I saved some of that for you too, and there's a whole lot of ivy growing all over the outside walls. I bet there's ivy outside every window of this place. We just have to smash them, and then we can pull the vines from the whole outside walls into our mouths by tugging careful.
She stood back to let the other 2 goats feed.
I came in here to ask Ruby where we could find some lunch.
Dead goats don't talk, Silver bleated around a mouthful of ivy.
Well, I know that, Silver, but I figured Ruby's probably have spent her last days as close as she could to food. Look, someone already smashed this window. Must have been her.
There followed several minutes of chewing. I wonder, Minerva mused after she'd demolished a wheelbarrow's worth of ivy with the ease and power of an industrial-strength Vitamix blending a mango smoothie. I wonder if we could get down that willow tree. What do you think, Silver? Silver appraised the distance. Impossible for a goat, she pronounced. We could climb it, up or down, but we couldn't get to it from here. You know we aren't length jumpers. Yeah, I was just hoping you'd be crazy enough to try the jump and we could see if you survive the fall. Maybe we could use your body as a landing.
Minerva!
Gotina cut in.
That was unlike you and unkind. I know the Silver is self-absorbed and bossy, but she saved our lives last night. And as leader of this expedition, I demand that you apologize to her.
Okay, you're right. I'm on edge, and Silver hit me really hard just before this. But Minerva's apology was cut short by a distinctly unmusical voice. An unmusical, unhurried voice calling up from below.
Ah, there you are,
said the voice.
Fattening up, I see.
The 3 goats looked at each other wild-eyed. Was this Sawyer coming to rescue them? It didn't sound like Sawyer, but maybe? They all put their heads out the window. Someone was standing on the ground, looking up at them. It was not Sawyer. It was a little hard to piece apart exactly what were the physical boundaries of this new man on the ground. It was hard to tell on account of the giant snake on his shoulders and the bale of alfalfa in his arms, but it was certainly not Sawyer.
Does this look delicious to you? It's called alfalfa. The woman at the feed store said goats like alfalfa. You are goats, aren't you? I don't pay much attention, but the neighbor kid did say it was goats that went missing.
Then he made a smile that was visible as a sham, even from a distance. The 3 young goats stared on, silent, as the man put down the bale and, unmoving, disappeared around the corner of the barn. "Is that alfalfa for us?" Silver asked. "How does he think we're supposed to get at it from way down there?"
I don't know, but I don't like that man,
Gotina answered. The goats didn't have long to wonder because the man soon returned, carrying a whip and a tall ladder. He put the objects down on the ground and looked at them. There were too many to carry.
Well, this is like the old riddle about the fox, the chicken, and the lettuce. I always say eat the chicken, then the lettuce.
Regretfully, he turned to the snake.
Wait here, Elvis,
he said, and carefully he guided the giant snake into the branches of the willow tree, where it slithered its thick coils onto a branch and lay, looking directly at the goats, its long tongue flickering out at them. Then the man leaned the ladder right up against the barn wall under their window, took up the bale of alfalfa, and after some moments of struggle, managed to get it perched atop his shoulder and the whip tucked under his arm.
There,
he said, and then
I work out.
And he began climbing the ladder with his free arm. The 3 goats stood with their heads out the old window frame, watching on, terrified but unable to look away from the man with the unmoving grin on his face, moving forward up towards them on the ladder, with a bale of one of their very favorite treats balanced on his shoulder. Minerva was very aware of wanting to be able to keep her eyes on the man, but also to stay out of his reach. Soon, his face was level with them, peeking in their window.
Good. You're standing at a respectful distance. I was afraid you would rush my ladder, and I can't have you escaping.
Leaning in, arm free of the ladder, he took the whip and swished it experimentally towards them a few times, managing a crack after a few tries.
That's just in case you get any ideas,
he told them. The goats were terrified. Never had they seen something like the whip, and it put a cold dread in them. They backed up further. Then the man threw the bale of delicious alfalfa right through the window towards them.
Is this enough for the 3 of you to really fatten up on? How long will it take? You're pretty scrawny, really. Then again, I don't know how long your owner, TV, I can't remember her name, or how long she said she'd be away, but I have a feeling she'll be a lot harder to get rid of than that weedy bookworm of a farmhand. So we had better get to it before then. Even if you're still skinny like this, I know he'll enjoy you.
He looked the goats over. Gotina was strangely aware of how he stood, framed in the window, unaware that below him, right below the window frame where his hands rested, was the skeleton of a goat who had she really?
Did you really kill a man, Ruby?
She felt herself silently ask the bones of which the man in the window was totally unaware, though he was mere inches from them. Did she? Was it her imagination? Did she see Ruby's head twitch on its spine? The man's voice broke through her reverie.
The question is, do I let him up here with you, without getting eaten myself, or getting dirty? Or should I try to force you 3 down to him somehow? It's so dusty in here. Where's the best place for me to watch the hunt, safely and cleanly?
He waggled his eyebrows.
Either way, my prize is hungry for you. I haven't fed him since he got here 3 days ago.
He cracked the whip again, just to watch them jump, it seemed. Then he beckoned to Elvis, who had snaked his way up the willow tree. Elvis came as close to the man as he could, but as the goats had just discussed, the distance between the barn and the sturdy branch was too great. Scott looked, smiling at his snake a moment, then turned his attention back to the goats.
Elvis is wondering if he could eat one of you whole. The little one, maybe. Perhaps I'll let him try. Fatten up now, I've got to repair my front door. A little vandal came and busted it this morning, looking for you all, no doubt.
The man nodded.
Don't bother trying to follow me down this ladder. You'll regret it.
Then he descended, and Elvis slithered down the tree after him. When he reached the bottom, he retrieved Elvis from the tree, then hoisted the ladder and carried it away around the corner.
Layla, come to the table.
In his room, in the blanket fort, between his two goats and stuffed to the gills with sweet cereal, Arcturus sat bolt upright.
Arky, come.
That's my mother. I guess I better go, he explained to his team. He refilled the bowls with mini-wheats and lingered, patting the goats who stared back at him. Then he sighed. I guess I really have to leave this womb, he said nervously. I don't really want to leave this womb. You know, after the tiger and everything.
Arcturus, your mother is calling you.
Millicent's voice rang out, irritated now. I don't really know why she says, your mother? Arcturus mused. Why doesn't she just say, I am calling you? She is my mother?
Arcturus.
The knob rattled.
Is this door locked?
It rattled again.
Arcturus, you know we don't have locked doors in this house. Come out this instant.
I guess I really better go, he told his team in an exaggerated whisper. He double-checked the bowls of mini-wheats and, finding them untouched, he double-checked that the lines were tied to the bedpost.
How did you even lock it, Arcturus? Are you in there?
Don't go anywhere, he whispered seriously to them. It's not safe anywhere out of this womb.
Arcturus, are you in there?
Coming, he called. And then, don't go anywhere. After Arcturus had exited the blanket fort and then tucked it back around its fastenings and disappeared out the door, Dandy immediately started tugging on the lines that kept her tied in the blanket fort. How are we going to get out of here? Get out? Are you crazy? You heard the kid. We aren't safe anywhere outside of this room. Dandy gave Mangoat a headbutt, just a little one, to clear her head. Mangoat, did you eat too much sweet cereal or something? We're not the ones in danger. Our sisters are. They're trapped in there with that thing. Oh, yeah. I guess I did eat a lot of sweet cereal. But also, I just got caught up in being part of the team. And also the sweet cereal. But Dandy, you're right. Our sisters are in danger. Goatina! Little Goatina! Mangoat began to rear up and give a ferocious butt at the air, thrashing against her leash. Bah! Bah! Down the hall, Millicent was crowing.
Layla, have you locked the door too?
No, Mom, I'm coming.
Layla called from her room. She had ink on her fingers and eyeshadow on her eyes. It had been a productive day for her. One of her dolls had undergone hypnosis and recovered her memories of her life as Anastasia, the lost Russian princess. She'd also invented a new way of fusing the arts of knitting and friendship bracelet knotting, and, most importantly, she'd written the script and diagrammed the storyboard for what would probably be the greatest Usnap video of all time.
Layla?
Layla was looking doubtfully at her block of wood. It was all very well to do the doll talk show on the block of wood. She was only practicing, but with this new video, she wanted it to be real.
Layla? Layla?
Why are you calling us out?
Layla asked her mother when she arrived in the kitchen.
Well, it's time for a family meal. I made eggplant croquant.
Arcturus reached the kitchen just in time to hear this. He and Layla looked at each other and sniffed the air suspiciously. Eggplant croquant? Arcturus asked. his face screwed up in a disgusted disbelief.
What even is eggplant boubant? Sounds terrible.
Mom, does that clock say 3:15?
Of course it does.
Is that AM or PM?
PM, Layla. 3:15 p.m.
Millicent answered, slamming the dish of eggplant croquant down on the table.
I'm just wondering, what meal is served at 3:15 p.m.?
A family meal.
It was then that there was a sound of muffled yelling or screaming, possibly bleating.
What's that noise? Is that a man screaming somewhere?
Arcturix gulped, then turned to Layla. I think it would be good if you put on a record. The noise rang out again.
I can't bear for a man to be screaming.
Layla gasped and took her little brother by the hands.
Really? But, Arky, don't you hate it when I put on records?
Well, I would like to hear a record now, Arcturix answered, his eyes on his mother, who was trying to trace the source of the noise. It is a curious fact that some goats sound more or less exactly like a man screaming, and Mangoat, calling desperately for her little sister, was one of these. In fact, she made the man screaming sound so convincingly that Millicent could hear only that.
Mom, Arcturix is finally developing a taste in music.
That's wonderful, dear. Now, do either of you hear a man screaming?
Millicent had her head cocked to the side.
What kind of record do you want, Arky?
Well, a very loud one.
You got it, little guy.
Layla trotted off to the record player.
It's almost like it's coming from inside the house.
Millicent put a hand to her head.
Why would a man be screaming inside my house? I'm not even married.
Layla's current favorite record, Lizzo, came pulsing out from the speaker in the other room.
How do you like this, Arky?
Arcturix cocked his ear. The record was 2 shades louder than the next muffled bleat that came from his room. It's good, he said, smiling at his sister.
But now I can't hear the man screaming.
Well, Mom, you just said yourself you can't bear to hear a man screaming. So now you can't hear him screaming, Arcturix offered reasonably. Now, he sat down at the table and resumed his complaining about the food.
Egg pie boubant? I hate egg pie bouffant.
That isn't the Arcturix.
He began sliding down off his chair and rolling back across the kitchen floor as though he could not be seen if he wasn't on the vertical plane.
Where are you going?
Well, I'm kind of in the middle of something.
He tried, but Millicent shook her head.
We are going to sit down as a family and eat this meal,
she said firmly, pointing to the table.
Which is not exactly dinner, not exactly lunch, but anyway.
Layla said as she sat down.
I am hungry,
she added, looking warily down at the eggplant croquant.
I haven't eaten anything today.
What? Nothing, Layla. Did you make yourself any breakfast?
No, Mom, we're completely out of cereal,
Layla said, pointing to the pantry.
Like, completely out. Doesn't anyone buy cereal around here?
What? But I just bought 5 boxes.
Millicent went to the pantry.
They're gone. 5 boxes? Gone. I put them right here yesterday. Did you 2 eat them already?
No, I didn't have any.
Arcturix, did you eat the cereal?
Arcturix fiddled with his fork. Well, yes.
All of it?
He nodded vigorously.
5 entire jumbo family-sized boxes of cereal in less than 24 hours?
Well, Mom, I was really hungry.
Mom, Arky is a growing kid. And you only cook for us when you feel like it.
I'm an inspiration-based cook. I cook beautiful and sumptuous meals when the spirit moves me. But no one who's stuffed to the gills with 5 boxes of cereal will appreciate the gourmet flavors of eggplant croquant. Anyone who's eaten that much cereal will just turn up his little nose at eggplant croquant.
Arcturix had slithered back onto the floor. It was then that the door opened and Sawyer breezed in, the rushing autumn wind with him.
Eggplant croquant? I love eggplant croquant.
He kissed his mother, sat down, took up the spatula, and began dishing up the croquettes for his siblings.
No one else seems interested,
Millicent said, sitting down at the table and turning away with her arms crossed.
What? Guys, this stuff has a weird name, but it's actually delicious,
he said to his siblings.
Eggplant only seems scary, but Mom is great at cooking it. And croquant just means crispy, like a French fry. See?
He demonstrated eating a bite and letting the little ones hear the crunch.
It's so good. You gotta try it.
Layla shrugged a smile up at her big brother and popped a croquant into her mouth.
It's actually pretty good.
Arcturix looked on suspiciously. Well, if it's like a French fry, can I dip it in ketchup?
No,
trilled Millicent, appalled at the muddying of the delicate flavors.
Of course you can,
Sawyer said, freezing Millicent with a look and getting the ketchup from the fridge. Arcturix carefully cut a piece the size of his fingernail and drowned it in ketchup. He held it up warily. Millicent pouted, crossing her arms.
Just try it.
Sawyer cajoled, eating 2 more at once.
They're really good.
Oh, he won't eat anything. He ate 5 boxes of cereal. Also, there's a man screaming somewhere. It's driving me mad.
Sawyer looked oddly at his mother.
A man screaming? Maybe we're lucky. Maybe it's our new neighbor getting strangled by his snake.
Sawyer paused, pretending to look casual.
Probably not, but speaking of which, Mother, I really wish you'd go over there again.
Oh, not this again. Tell FM I'll reimburse her for her lost goats.
Reimburse? No, it's not about that, Mother. They're part of a herd. FM is very choosy about which goats she keeps. We can't just let some rich guy get away with kidnapping livestock. I'm responsible for the animals. Please, just go over there and talk to him.
Oh, don't make me go over there and bother him. He's a very busy man.
He's not busy. He's a creep who spends his days snuggling a snake and threatening people. Just go and ask him.
She doesn't need to,
Layla said quietly, putting another eggplant croquant in her mouth.
He's coming up to the door right now.
Arcturix took this as his cue to slither out of his chair and roll across the kitchen floor, back to the hallway where he ran to his room. Back in the kitchen, Layla watched Sawyer assume a succession of postures and tactical expressions before settling on one that he hoped was the most intimidating. Millicent had slipped an eyelet lace apron on and was ready at the door when the knock came. Millicent opened the front door and suddenly the entryway to their home was filled with man and snake.
Why, it's Mr. Scott and Elvis. How delightful. You must have come for a taste of my eggplant croquant,
she said, pulling off her trademark impression of unplanned, effortless gracefulness. She passed Scott a perfect hors d'oeuvre platter of the fritters.
Charming, charming,
he answered, taking the plate with a wink that might have been cast out of silicone and every appearance of no plan to eat anything. Layla turned to Sawyer and observed.
I don't think he's the one who's been screaming, so I guess we're not lucky after all.
Scott's facial settings rippled uncomfortably as they traveled over the sight of Layla and her trademark dreamy straightforwardness. He settled on a reassuring smile.
I never scream.
Well,
Millicent tried to fill the awkward silence with her hostess gush, but Layla wasn't through.
He's definitely not gonna eat that, Mom.
Layla?
Millicent admonished, but Layla still wasn't finished.
I don't think he eats anything unless it comes wrapped in plastic. You know on ads when they talk about meal replacements? I still don't really know what they are, but I think he eats meal replacements.
Sawyer made a sound like choking on an eggplant. Millicent looked at her daughter, horrified.
What? What?
Sawyer opened a cupboard to hide his face behind it.
I wonder if it's like a little pellet, like a kibble or a pill. That's how I imagine a meal replacement. Maybe he eats the same thing as Snake eats?
Scott, sensing the opportunity to get the conversation onto more comfortable ground, hitched his face back into place.
Elvis eats rats. Live rats. I buy them at the pet store.
He flashed his white teeth at Layla.
Isn't that neat?
But Layla turned all her attention to destroying a hangnail with her teeth and didn't let him know if she thought that was neat or not.
Well,
Millicent began again, somewhat hopelessly this time. Scott turned his still exposed teeth onto Millicent.
Out of the mouths of babes.
Millicent laughed her hostess laugh on Wild Relief setting and was still laughing when Scott pulled out a small stack of official-looking papers.
So I'm not sure if you're aware, Millicent, but yesterday your older son came to my house and accused me of stealing livestock, which in fact amounts to libel, following which he threatened to trespass on my property. Then this morning, your youngest child, surely working on behalf of his brother, vandalized my property.
He opened his palm.
These are the bolts he hatchered off my antique barn door, leaving pits on the wood.
He put the mangled bolts on the counter.
Here is a bill for $400. That's the appraised cost of restoring an antique barn door. Here's the appraiser's note. This...
He peeled off these first two documents and handed them to Millicent. Then came to the third.
This is a restraining order against any member of your family crossing my property line, punishable by a $5,000 fine or 90 days in jail.
Millicent, who all through this had been staring at the documents in disbelief, now looked up at Scott's face to see if he could possibly be serious. His professional charm face didn't waver.
I put in a call to a judge who was in my college fraternity,
he explained, smiling. He placed the stack of documents on Millicent's counter and sauntered out of her kitchen. Sawyer, recovering himself, strode over to the door and called out,
This isn't the end of this. I know you have them.
But Scott didn't respond, didn't even turn around, just kept sauntering down the walkway. There was an awful silence that followed his exit. Millicent sank into a chair, staring at the papers.
Unbelievable!
Sawyer finally snapped.
What's a restraining order?
Layla asked, her large eyes full of anxiety. Sawyer tried to give her a kind smile while holding a finger over his lips and shaking his head once.
Quiet now,
he told her. Layla's chin trembled and she held out her arms to her brother. Sawyer hugged her for a long time.
Arcturix hatcheted $400 worth of damage,
Millicent asked faintly.
Mom, that guy is a asshat. Arcturix is just a little kid.
And you,
She turned on him.
making wild accusations against a new neighbor.
Because they're true.
Did you put Archie up to vandalizing that barn?
Millicent flared her nostrils and shook her head.
I have never been so humiliated in my life.
This isn't about you being embarrassed, Mom.
Layla, disentangling from her brother's hug, let her hand linger for a moment somewhere in the neighborhood of his back pocket. Millicent gripped the handles of her kitchen chair, closed her eyes, and executed 10 full seconds of dramatic, deep breathing. When her eyelids fluttered back open, she pointed at Sawyer.
We'll talk about this later. Right now, I need your help getting these deliveries out to my customers by 5 p.m.
But the missing goats.
I don't care about missing goats. Do you understand? If I hear one more word about these missing goats, I'll execute that restraining order myself.
But Mom!
No buts. Now get out there and load that cypress.
Millicent stood up and stormed from the room, the crispness of her footfalls letting her children know she was done talking. Sawyer made a strangled groan. Sawyer? This was Arcturix, peeking back into the kitchen. He had been wrestling with himself for some moments about if he should tell any adults, and if so, which adults should he tell? You actually shouldn't go outside right now, and you shouldn't let Mom go either? Sawyer sighed and tried to gather a moment's worth of patience to listen to his little brother.
What? Why not?
Well, there is a tiger out there. Sawyer managed a weak smile and patted Arcturix on the head.
Okay, little guy.
After Scott had descended the ladder, Gotina, Silver, and Minerva had stood a long time, staring at the bale of alfalfa in terrified silence. They were each haunted by different creepy details of the man's visit. Gotina could not escape the feeling of the snake's hungry eyes appraising her. Minerva was trapped in desperate calculations. The man had wondered how long it would take them to fatten up, versus when FM might come back to rescue them, versus the monster. Her mind blanched. The thing down there, the chupacabra, the whatever it was, not having eaten in days, getting hungry for them. Minerva shepherded her mind away from this horror. And some little vandal had come looking for them, the man had said? Did he mean the visit from the little scamp human and the kids, or could Layla, the girl, have come to try and rescue her? Probably she hadn't, but would she? Might she? And Silver couldn't organize her thoughts. She wondered if she could beat the chupacabra again. She wondered if she should insist on eating the whole bale of alfalfa herself, so she would fatten up first and be put into the proverbial ring to fight it alone, the champion of the goats. She wondered if she might be bigger already in height or in horn than Minerva, if she would be indeed chosen to fight first, to protect them all. Then, perversely, she wondered if she could outrun Minerva, if they were being chased. "No! Bah!" Silver screamed, to interrupt her own train of thought. Cowardly thoughts! Her bleat jolted the other two. "Well, are we going to eat this alfalfa or not?" Silver shouted at them. "Why, to fatten up," Minerva said bitterly. "To get nice and plump for that monster? That snake?" There was a tense, miserable silence.
"Ruby would want us to eat,"
Gotina pronounced. "That hay could be drugged," Minerva cautioned.
"Drugged?"
said Gotina and Silver together so loudly that they did not hear something stirring beneath them. They did not hear the something stirring. They might not have heard it anyway. So quiet it was. Green eyes blinking awake below them. Green eyes finding in the darkness the second staircase up to the hayloft.
"What does drugged mean?"
Gotina asked, over the silent noise of soft, huge paws, navigating a wooden staircase cluttered with boxes. "Drugged, it's a vet thing," Minerva said. "Human stuff, trickery. Makes you sleepy." Now, in this particular room, no mysterious force could flare the old electric lights. The bulb had been smashed in the hurricane of '68, and so this time, when the enormous furred head pushed upwards, lifting the second trap door, just inches from Minerva's back hooves, there was no warning flicker.
"Why would that human want us to get sleepy?"
Gotina asked. "Why do humans want anything?" Silver roared, stamping her hooves. "It might even put us completely to sleep," Minerva mused. The tiger was getting a good look at the three of them. Her huge green eyes now up above the floorboard level. The eyes scanned Minerva's plump haunches, Silver's fat belly, and locked eyes with Gotina. Gotina, who had been staying within touching distance of Ruby's bones the whole time, saw the tiger, and some survival instinct in her slipped into the slow motion, seconds turned to hours modality of a true life-and-death situation. She saw the eyes. She read the hunger in the eyes, calculated from the great size of the head, the full might and size of the beast. And the littlest goat sprung upward on all four hooves, spun around in the air to turn and beg help from her protectress, Ruby Onehorn. Ruby offered her bones. Gotina grabbed in her mouth a long shank bone. It surrendered its connection to the skeleton with no resistance. Gotina spun once more, and, whipping her head around, she gave a mighty bleat of alarm because the tiger was on the move. In the time it had taken her to fetch the bone, it had come up. It was half out of the trap door now. How silently it moved. and was coiling to leap at Minerva. Gotina's bleat came out garbled, and the bone flew out of her mouth, whipping across the room at the velocity of her sprawling. It smacked the tiger across the eyes. The beast and the raw noise of it close range rattled the three goats to their marrow. Minerva and Gotina screamed and ran in no particular direction, just ran, panic overtaking them. But Silver, "Have at thee, beast!" she crowed, and before the tiger could shake off the shank bone to the eye, Silver had cracked her on the head. "Take that!" yelled, prancing back to deliver another blow. The tiger shot out one claw and raked Silver's leg. Silver screamed and staggered backwards. Bah! The tiger prepared to pounce again, but the smell of blood cutting the air aroused the fight in Minerva. She found her feet, put her whole back into it, and surprised the creature with a downward side blow, clocking her hard with her full 18-month growth of horn, pushing the tiger part backways down into the trapdoor hole. Gotina, similarly called back into the fight by the sight of Silver's beautiful fur streaked with blood, now circled around and butted the back of the heavy trapdoor, which stood propped open on its hinges to bang the tiger on the back of the neck. The creature whirled and shot a lightning-fast paw at Gotina, but the little goat dodged. This gave Minerva the chance she needed to smash the beast hard on its face. And Gotina went for the door again. This time it was angled down enough so that she could jump onto its slanted surface and bounce. Once, twice, 3 times, pounding the creature back down into the trap door like a mallet on a whack-a-mole. Minerva cracked its face once more. But the fighting creature, though she was being hit from in front and behind, as she was pounded back down, she shot out her claw once more, and Minerva felt her face sear with white-hot pain, where the claw scraped across the bone under her eye. Still, she reared back and butted the tiger again. This time she could feel that it was being pushed back further as Gotina bounced on the wooden door above. Minerva, seeing blood in her left eye, reared up to butt again, but the tiger anticipated her. And its great white paw swatted her, and her skull rattled as she flew 6 feet across the room. Behind her, the tiger twisted her sinuous spine and prepared to throw her full strength against the door at the littlest goat who kept bouncing on the trap door and her head. "Gotina, move!" The screams seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Gotina was certain, as she heard it, that it came from Ruby, and she leapt blindly, full of faith, just as the tiger swatted the door open and lunged its jaws, snapping a hair's breadth away from her little tail. Then a stack of boxes crashed down on its head. Boxes containing between them all 26 volumes of the Encyclopedia Britannica, 1916 edition. These bombarded the tiger back into the hold, and Minerva, running over, threw the door back down, and she and Gotina worked like 60 to push more boxes on top of the door. It was Silver who had done it. Silver who, though wounded, had scored the decisive blow that had sent the creature back down below. She stood a moment and said quietly, "Well, that worked twice," and she fell over and lay flat, eyelids fluttering.
"Oh, Silver, you saved us again,"
Gotina said. "That's right. Can't give any credit to any ghost this time. It was all Silver." Minerva, now that the crisis had passed, was too worried about the amount of blood on the floor below Silver, was too concerned about the flat, expressionless tone of the prize winner's voice, to argue with her taking full credit.
"Heel, goaties. No, stop bleating. Goatie, heel, goatie."
Arcturix fished a cooling brown lump out of his pockets.
"Heel. It's eggplant boubant."
The little goat stopped bleating long enough to inspect the offered food.
"My mom says it's a vegetable. It doesn't come from a chicken at all," he explained.
Mangoat sniffed the food, then butted it away and resumed her wailing.
"Bah! I didn't like it either." "Bah! Goatie, you have to be quiet. If you don't stop bleating, my mother will come in here and find you, and there's no telling what she'll do."
A knocking at the door cut through the bleating.
"Shh!
Arcturix said to Mango with such vehemence that she actually quieted.
Arky?
Oh, it's only Layla, he told the goats.
Arky, it's just me. Mom's gone.
Arcturix slipped out of the blanket fort and opened the door a crack.
Arky, want to make a U-Snap video with me? It's gonna be amazing.
Slyly, she showed him what she'd slipped out of Sawyer's pocket. You got a wheel block of wood? You got a wheel phone? Layla's eyes flashed.
Yep, it's gonna be so good. And you can help me if you want to.
Arcturix solemnly shook his head. Well, actually, I'm probably never leaving the house again. It's too dangerous. You shouldn't go outside either. Layla narrowed her eyes and looked past him to the blanket fort.
You're not, hiding the missing kids in here or anything, right?
No, I'm not hiding the kids. I saved them. For my tiger.
Oh, okay, Arky. Good job, little guy.
Patted him on the shoulder, then paused.
Mom and Sawyer are kind of freaking out.
Well, they should be. There's a tiger on the loose.
So you won't come help me? I can keep you safe.
Layla, you're just a kid. You can't fight a tiger. You're not even very good with a slingshot.
Okay, fine. I'll do it myself. But will you at least tell me how to make the alpaca twerk?
Arcturix wiggled his nose.
What's twerking?
You know, when you spray him and he,
Layla grinned, got low, and popped it, popped it, popped it.
Oh, that's easy. You just aim for his butthole.
He giggled as Layla thanked him.
His anus. Aim for his anus. Get it? Aim for his anus. It whines.
Well, listeners, thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Goat American novel. You tuned in and listened to the end, whether or not you can stand the flavor of eggplant or if you've even tried it before. The Goat American novel is written and performed by me, Hildy Festerling, with additional performances by Ursula Buker, Erin Alden, Johnny Buker, Gabriel Alden, Caleb Alden, and this week introducing our guest correspondent from This American Goat, Myra Grass, or she is also known as Amanda Laughtland. Thank you always, our eternal gratitude, as always, to the Steam Brass Band for their cracking cover of Sweet Dreams. Thank you also to the many musicians who worked to help make this podcast sound so sweet. We'll be back in a few weeks with more shenanigans. See you then.
Everybody looking for something. Sweet dreams are made of these. Who am I to disagree? I travel the world and the seven seas. Everybody's looking for something.